myself did not expect to see 2,200 people in Japan. You know, I think that's normally a tournament that's around 1,000 people, maybe 1,200, but 2,200 people there is a lot. And I think that this kind of attendance numbers is going to start being the norm.
Well, yeah, we know Christian Calcano went over. I don't know if other Americans went over, but yeah, you generally break 1,000 there, but I don't think they don't break 2,000 regularly.
Yeah, and they're at 2,200 this weekend, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So fantastic for the growth of the game. But moving to our feature match here, we see recent Pro Tour top 4 competitor Eric Froehlich on the right. He is playing Jun this weekend, and taking a look at this deck list, this is very, very reminiscent to Reed Duke's deck list from Quebec. He's got 2 Arbor Elves, 4 Thragtusk, 4 Huntmaster, 3 Olivia Valderin. He's got 3 copies of Bonfire, with the 4th one in the sideboard, 3 copies of Tragic Slip, 3 copies of Liliana of the Veil, handful of Farseeks, 2 Garrett Primal Hunter, a Mizium Mortars, a Dreadbore, a couple copies of Rakdos Return, Abrupt Decay, and 1 Murder.
And he is playing against Thomas Johnson, who's playing Naya Blitz, a deck that we discussed thoroughly. Standard list. He's playing 2 Giant Growth and 1 Rancor and 2 Searing Spear and 1 Boros Charm. So he kind of hedged a little bit to get a little more variety in there. But other than that, his deck's pretty straightforward. The typical 1-drops, the Flinthoof Bear. He's got the Mayor, Lightning Mauler, and Burning Tree Emissary. So he's on a mulligan here. So we'll see, and he's also on the draw. So Eric, things are starting off pretty well for Eric right now. But again, this is going to be one of those things where once Thomas is on the play, is Eric going to be able to keep up with those aggressive 1-drops?
So we do see Eric is going to be on the play here, and he has kept his 7 as Thomas is taking a mulligan here. It's going to be pretty important for Thomas to, you know, start off with a 1-drop and just get things underway. We'll see if Eric does have a Farseek, which is obviously an important card in this matchup as well, to just play his cards that are huge backbreakers like Huntmaster of the Fells and Thragtusk ahead of schedule. And you know, the thing about the Jun deck, you know, it is a deck that is very good against creature decks, but it does have some bad draws in it against these creature decks, like a Rakdos Return. And some of its removal, you know, has to be on time. You know, Tragic Slip can be good, it can also be very bad as well. And a card like Garrett Primal Hunter isn't especially good against the aggressive strategies out there. Is just a 5-mana 3/3 for all intents and purposes. So he's going to have to draw the quote-unquote good half of his deck in this game 1. As we do see an Overgrown Tomb here.
Looks like an Arbor Elf, so he certainly has what he needs.
So yeah, he's off to a good start here. He's going to have Acceleration, Overgrown Tomb being a land that he can't untap as well. We're going to see a Temple Garden here from Thomas, and there's a champion.
So there's both decks have the type of starts that they were hoping for.
Now you see in Eric's hand, he does have a Liliana of the Veil, and that's what he's going to cast, and he's going to take care of that Champion of the Parish right now.
So you're seeing that 5th and 6th Farseek really do work here.
And you see how it is, you know, they do say, Reed and Owen, they basically said it is a 5th and 6th Farseek, excuse me, but you see the differences between the 2 cards as well. Farseek does not allow for a turn 2 Liliana of the Veil, where this card does, an Arbor Elf. Now you're
Burning Tree Emissaries. So, you know, gives Thomas a little play here, but between the Arbor Elf and the Liliana, Eric might have bought himself enough time for a Thragtusk to come down and sort of help control this board state.
You do see Thragtusk in Eric's hand. You also see the Stomping Grounds that he's thumbed forward. He is going to be discarding here with Liliana. Going to attack Thomas's hand a little bit here. And I'm not quite sure what he did discard. It is a Stomping Ground, okay. And now...
Farseek, I believe. If I'm correct.
Eric is going to play a Farseek here.
And I don't think he has another play, but again, you know, next turn he's going to be he'll get a Thragtusk in play. Thomas will be able to kill the Liliana this turn, but will Thragtusk be enough? We'll see.
And you've already seen the kind of damage that Liliana can do over the course of a game. You know, it doesn't seem like it's that great, but it did take care of a creature. It's going to take care. It already taken care of a card from Thomas's hand, and now, you know, it's something that he actually does have to attack. You probably see the Emissary go there, and then the Boar go straight to Eric, most likely. Sacred Foundry going to come into play untapped here for Thomas.
Frontline Medic.
And Frontline Medic it is.
There we go. Okay, so that's one way Thomas can deal with the Thragtusk, or at least ignore the Thragtusk.
You see Eric does take a draw, kind of, you know, drawing his card with Miracle in mind. As you guys do see, frontline medic there.
And it looks like we switched over to a different match.
There we go.
And there we go.
And so,
and there's an attack.
So you see frontline medic come across with the guy's battalion is activated. So the guys are indestructible. Eric does just chump block with the Thragtusk and does just pass the turn back. So frontline medic is making the attacks look very, very easy. Now it's just up for Eric to be able to deal with that thing, and then he should be good to go.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is that Thomas didn't really draw anything else to further press his advantage. So, yeah, if Eric draws anything, he's able to attack, and now... So, yeah, this is pretty much the ideal scenario. And I think Eric even has a Tragic Slip. So he'll be able to deal with the medic in this combat phase.
Yeah, what you might say here is Arborel jumping the way.
Yeah, jumping away, untapping on the Overgrown Tomb, and then Tragic Slipping out frontline medic.
Yeah. Which
is great, because Eric will only end up taking 3 from this attack, going to 20, and then Thomas basically has, no creatures left on board, other than like a 2-2 and a 3-3.
So we see a Sun Petal Grove, and now we see...
Is that the Fire Fist Striker?
That is the Firefish Striker, a card that Patrick Sullivan enjoys, which is not much of a surprise to me.
Oh.
And now we see a Miracle Bonfire to the Damned here.
So long, frontline medic.
So now Thomas is going to have to decide if he wants to sacrifice that frontline medic or let everything go away, which means he's probably going to want to sacrifice that frontline
unless he has a Boros Charm missing.
That's true, which he has one of.
Pretty good right now. Yep. But choose the sack the counter.
So medic is going to sacrifice.
Which would, interesting to see now. Eric just swings in.
I remember that Eric does have that Tragic Slip in his hand, which is live right now.
Yeah, so he's got the live Tragic Slip. So, yeah, Eric's in really good shape right here. I'm not sure, again, Thomas's deck is not the type of deck where you can, so it looks like he does have a Boros Charm.
Huh, okay.
But again, Eric does have a Tragic Slip, so he can save one of his Thragtusk and trade with the Flint Hoof Core and get a token anyway, so still a really good shape.
Yeah. As good as that Boros Charm has the potential to be, the Tragic Slip does kind of break it up a little bit. That Thragtusk, is going to bite the dust, so Eric will get a Beast token. And Jerry Thompson is going to mock a Beast right now. But if you're Thomas right now, you've got 2 2-power creatures. You're looking at a Beast token, and this is the situation with the Naya Blitz. This is the situation with the Naya Blitz that doesn't want to be in. It's behind at this point. It doesn't really do a fantastic job of catching up, and Eric has a 5-power guy and a 3-power guy, and they are coming across.
Yeah, and this is basically, if the Naya Blitz deck is on the draw, plus your opponent does have an Arbor Elf or a Farseek to sort of help them speed up a little bit, that's exactly what the Naya Blitz player is afraid of. They're just afraid of getting into a position where all your opponent's creatures are bigger than yours, they have removal spells. Suddenly, there's just nothing that Thomas can really do realistically to sort of get himself out of this.
And so what we see here is a double block here from Thomas on the Thragtusk, Giant Growth on the Burning Tree Emissary. The Thragtusk is going to bite the dust, but again, Eric is going to get a 3/3 token, and these double blocks and these uses of Giant Growth is as helpful as they may or may not be. Again, this just shows how good of a card Thragtusk is, but we already know how great Thragtusk is. So.
Yeah, especially if you draw 2.
Yeah.
I think Thomas had a chance maybe if if Eric didn't get a second Thragtusk, maybe frontline medic could have kept pushing through. But again, once you get to that turn 5-6 range and you haven't put enough pressure on to burn him out with either Singing Spears and Boros Charms, or like a one all-out attack, there's not much Naya Blitz can do. So we'll see here on the play. He's got Thalia's. He's got Boros Charms that he can bring in. It's probably going to take out the Giant Growth. I don't know how good Fire Fist Striker is.
Yeah, Firefish Striker doesn't seem to be the best card. He does have 4 copies in his deck list. It seems like it's okay. I mean, he probably just wants Thalia instead here, probably. I would assume, right?
I mean, I really want to be able to turn off Farseek on turn 2.
Yeah, especially on the play.
Yeah.
Thalia's a card that is, obviously exquisite on the play, especially on turn 2, and one that's not as great on the draw. It has situations where it can be okay, but again, Eric's deck is a healthy mix of spells and creatures. So it's not the end-all be-all. It's not a card that stops Thragtusk or, Huntmaster of the Fells from coming online.
Yeah.
So Taking a look at Eric's sideboard here, he is up a game against Thomas, and he does have plenty of cards that he can sideboard out. Cards like Rakdos Return can certainly go. A card like Garrett Primal Hunter can certainly go. He wants to lower his curve and interact as fast as he possibly can. Cards that he can do that with in his sideboard. He has 2 copies of Pillar of Flame. He has a 4th Tragic Slip in his sideboard, and he does have an additional Bonfire of the Damned. The other cards that he does have in his sideboard that aren't great here, but in case you guys do want to know at home, 2 copies of Grafdigger's Cage, a Staffanin, 1 copy of Acidic Slime, 2 copies of Underworld Connections, 2 copies of Slaughter Games, an additional Rakdos Return, and 2 Duress. So we're going to see 4 cards come in here, and 2 Pillar of Flames, a Tragic Slip, and probably that 4th Bonfire of the Damned, and 4 cards swap out pretty easily, and 2 copies of Rakdos Return, and 2 copies of Garrett Primal Hunter, and then his deck is just a lot better for this matchup.
Yeah.
But it seems like he's kind of tuned his deck a little bit to be a little bit better in this matchup game 1. He's got a lot of removal. He doesn't have a lot of elements that are very good against the control decks, and now his deck is just going to be a lot more streamlined, so he doesn't have the opportunity to draw those 4 cards in Rakdos Return and Garrett Primal Hunter.
Yeah, but again, you know, if he doesn't have an Arbor Elf on turn 1, the game's completely different.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you how important the ramp is in this deck. Interesting to see how it changes on the play with Thomas on the play now, because, you know, even if Eric's on the draw, I'm not sure how great the Arbor Elf is there, because he'd still end up having a champion of the parish in the play, but and he would have been able to go turn 1 champion, turn 2 emissary, Flint of War. So again, it's, you know, being on the play is so important for that Naya Blitz deck, which I think if maybe you test it a lot, maybe that's one of the things that's making people a little apprehensive. They're like, I don't want to have to win the die roll all day.
Yeah.
You know. But we'll see how what Thomas can do in game 2 here.
Yeah, you can definitely just see in that particular game, as you stated, the die roll super, super important. So it's a wildly different game, A, if Eric doesn't have that Arbor Elf, but B, if Thomas is just on the play that game. You know,
yeah,
2 very huge situations.
You know, being on the play with an Arbor Elf, Eric's effectively like 2 turns ahead of Thomas.
Yeah.
You know, so it's too much to overcome for a deck like Naya Blitz when you're dealing with we're playing against a deck like Jund with that many powerful cards.
And now we do see Thomas is going to start off again with a Temple Garden into Champion of the Parish. So a good start here from him. We'll see if he can take advantage of it as Eric does take his draw step. And we'll see if he does have an Arbor Elf. And he has a Blood Crypt here, so we may see a Pillar of Flame or a Tragic Slip. So Tragic Slip going to take care of it.
Looks like Eric's got a handful of removal.
Yeah, I see at least I see a Mizzium Mortars over there as well. He's
got the perfect draw to stave off Thomas's early assault and hope to get to Thragtusk, but it does look like Thomas has a Thalia, which would be pretty good right here.
We'll see a Cavern of Souls. That's going to name human, and we'll see Burning Tree Emissary into Flint of War.
So he chose to get those. Interesting. I thought he had a Thalia. I wonder if he just chose to not play it and play it on turn 3 instead.
Well, I believe his hand right now, I know he has a Stomping Grounds. He does have that Thalia that you did see, as we're going to see Mizzium Mortars take care of the Flinthoof Boar. And I believe he also has a Champion of the Parish in his hand as well. So, you know, it's interesting to see how his sequencing works out, as he does draw a Frontline Medic. You're going to see the Stomping Ground come into play untapped. Thomas is going to move down to 16, and we'll see what card he chooses to play this turn. And it is going to be a Champion of the Parish, and now you are going to see a Thalia. Moving the Champion of the Parish up to a 2-2. Burn Tree Emissary is going to come across for 2 to knock Eric down to 16. And so now he still does have a pretty good board right now, also.
Yeah, but the thing is that had he played the Thalia on turn 2, he basically shuts Eric's turn 2 off, because Eric doesn't have a 1-drop, so he turns it off. And then the next turn, he just plays the Emissary and Flint of War, and he activates the Flint of War haste ability, so he deals 5 on turn 3. So he effectively has the same amount of creatures in play, but he deals 5 instead of 2.
Sure.
I kind of, it'd be interesting to see if it matters, or if Eric is able, if the Thalia is just too good. He kind of baited the Mizzium Mortars last turn, but I think Eric still has a Abrupt Decay as an answer to Thalia anyway.
And you see Eric thinking pretty hard here, as he does have a Lily on the Veil in his hand that he cannot cast right now. You see Stomping Ground in his hand as well, and he's going to have to play that untapped to be able to actually cast that Abrupt Decay that you saw, that you brought up. And Abrupt Decay is going to take care of the Champion of the Parish right away. So he had to take 2 damage to even be able to do that, which is ideal, obviously, if you're Thomas in the situation. Part of the cost that goes along with this mana base is that you do have to pay 2 life sometimes when you don't want to. Tom is going to come across here for 4. And we'll see a follow-up here. It's going to be Burning Tree Emissary into Frontline Medic, so that's a pretty good turn. Bonfire turned off now for Eric, because Eric does draw another Stomping Ground here. And again, this might be a situation where he might have to play one of those Ravnica duels untapped to be able to do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And not only, one thing to keep in mind here is not only is Thalia making Liliana Veil like a pretty poor card, as you do see him play a Kessig Wolfrun and actually cast it, but again, he can sack any of these guys. I don't think he cares which one he sacrifices. He sacrifices Burning Tree Emissary and just passes the turn back.
And now he probably just attacks Eric, doesn't even care about Liliana.
Yeah, Liliana has no effect right now. Discarding a card doesn't really matter at all.
You'd rather have Eric discard a card anyway.
Absolutely. Comes across here for 7, gonna knock Eric down to 3, and we'll see what Thomas draws, because he's gonna play it no matter what it is.
Yeah.
This is Liliana, and it is just a Sun Petal Grove and passes the turn back. So what can Eric do to get himself out of this situation? He takes a draw. You see Stomping Ground move to the front. You know he has a Bonfire of the Damned in his hand as well. Last 2 cards are a mystery, but it looks like he does have something, because I think he would have conceded if he didn't. So we'll see.
Not necessarily. Could be slow rolling a concession. But yeah, Stomping Ground, Bonfire, takes 2, Bonfire.
All right, Thraxtusk. So he's going to move up to 6.
Yeah, so again, when the Frontline Medic is still going to allow Thomas to attack through it. Doesn't care so much. Is he going to draw Boros Charm to sort of seal things up?
Giant Mauler? Anything. Mayor of Abergrove.
Oh. And is that enough?
That's
I believe
a wrap.
it is.
Yep.
Yes.
He can get in front of the Frontline Medic. The other guys will do 6 points of damage, and that'll be it. So Thomas Johnson does win game 2, and you see just how important it is to be on the play. But another thing you also see there, Osip, is that on turn 1, Eric had to play a Blood Crypt untapped to try to set the Champion of the Parish. That's 2. And then on turn 3, he had to play a Stomping Ground untapped to be able to Abrupt Decay the other Champion of the Parish, so that's 2 as well. So he actually had to deal himself 4 points of damage, and that ends up mattering quite a bit.
And yeah, like you said, it's the price you pay for good mana, but I think with cards like Thragtusk Huntmaster, he doesn't care as much. It just, in this matchup, it just happens to really come back and bite you sometimes.
Yeah. And 90% of the matchups that you play in this format, that, again, as you said, that doesn't really matter all that much, because you can just recoup the life gain, which is, again, one of the reasons that this deck does play Underworld Connections, because it doesn't really mind, dealing itself damage. But in this one matchup, where he does have, taking a look at his deck list, 4 copies of Overgrown Tomb, 4 copies of Blood Crypt, 4 copies of Stomping Ground, that can come back to bite you in a big way. He did have some other lands, the M12 lands, as people like to call them, where, it's contingent on what other lands you have. He does have a lot of those as well, but he needs to draw, maybe 1 Ravnica duel, and then a lot more of those lands to be able to win the game. But this matchup also does feel like it is a little bit dependent on who's on the play and who's on the draw. The games are wildly different.
Yeah, because Thalia is obviously amazing on the play.
Yeah.
But on the draw, Eric has a little more flexibility there in terms of how he's going to deal with it. He could just ignore it and play a Huntmaster. And then, if Thomas doesn't have an answer, he could just pass the turn and let the Huntmaster flip and kill it on Thomas's upkeep.
Yep.
And use like an instant speed removal spell like Tragic Slip or Murder to sort of kill another creature. So, yeah, Thalia I think was great that game. But when you're on the draw, it's still going to be good. It's still a card that he definitely wants. But not being able to turn off Farseek is a pretty big deal.
And when you're Thomas and you look at an opening hand that has a Thalia in it and maybe 2 lands to be able to cast it, I think that's almost certainly a keep. It's one of the cards that you're looking for when you're on the play in a sideboarded game, and it can kind of influence your decision on what hand you want to keep. I'm on the play, I've got Thalia against this Jund deck, awesome, I'm going to keep, hopefully the rest of my hand comes together. When you're on the draw, you might have to change your line of thinking a little bit, because it is substantially worse in the draw than it is on the play.
Yeah, I don't think Thomas wants to keep a hand without a 1-drop, like Experimental One or Champion of the Parish. Maybe if it's like got a Thalia, a Frontline Medic, and like a Boros Charm, maybe he can think about keeping that, but in general, if you're on the draw, I think you really want to try to get one of your 1-drops to have a chance.
So we are underway here, game 3. Both players have kept their 7. Eric does have a Stomping Ground. He's going to play tapped, and Thomas again with a turn 1 Temple Garden into Champion of the Parish, bring himself down to 18. We'll see if Eric has a Farseek this game, or if he's just going to play straight up, and we're going to see Tragic Slip again take care of the champion.
All right, so Burning Tree Emissary or no?
Well, he's had it the first 2 games, and you see one in his hand. This one as well. Does he have a strong turn too?
He has a reasonably strong turn too.
Looks like he has a boar there.
Looks like he's got a couple of them in there.
Does feel a lot like Frogmite, doesn't it? Burning Tree Emissary. Burning Tree Emissary. And a Flint Hoof Boar.
Is that a Flint Hoof Boar? Yeah, all right. Is that a Flint Hoof or a Mare? I think it's a Flint Hoof.
I believe that is a Flint Hoof Boar. A little bit of glare here. So you see Eric put an overground 2-minute play tap and just say go.
Play. And Thomas has a Rampager too, which is great in this match.
There's a Sacred Foundry.
And
there's your Mayor of Averbrook. And here's your beatdowns.
9 on turn 3 sounds reasonable. So what can Eric do here? He has a Huntmaster in his hand and Olivia. Didn't top deck a Bonfire.
Dragon Skull Summit is the draw for this turn.
Yeah, so short of a removal spell, well, I think he does have a Bonfire in his hand. He can cast it for 1, but he has to just get the Huntmaster out there, go up to 13, and try to block.
Looks like Huntmaster might be on chump duty.
But the problem is that we know Thomas is a Rampager, so he's going to be getting through for a lot. He's attacking with everything.
Thomas is going to take a draw. Not quite sure what he drew that turn. I think there is a frontline medic looming in his hand, but the card that is of the utmost importance right now is Gore Clan Rampager. Not a card that he's going to cast, but it is a card that he's going to Blood Rush.
That's the great thing, is that he can actually attack with all of his creatures. Eric probably tries to block the Mayor. He might try to double block the Mayor playing around Giant Growth.
Yep.
But he doesn't know about the Rampager.
And Giant Growth is a card that he did see game 1 at the back end of it, and it's a card that were 3 copies of that in Nico's deck list that he won Quebec with, so it's easier to play around that card than it is to play around Gore Clan Rampager.
Yeah, unless he reads him, he might just try to double block or no, he just single blocks. Rampager might come down here, and the really interesting thing here is that because Rampager he's using the ability, he actually isn't casting a spell this turn, which means that on Eric's upkeep the Mayor could flip.
Yep.
Which is
it's good,
kind of good, but it also reduces the number of pump that he has available. So Eric can actually play a land and cast Bonfire for 2, killing off 2 of the creatures.
But unfortunately, he's at 4.
He's at 4, so not much he can do right now.
And you can just feel in this matchup, this is, the thing about Bonfire of the Damned is that it's such a powerful card when in the perfect situation.
When you miracle it.
Yeah, but there are situations like last turn where if he would have miracled it, it would have been good enough.
Yeah.
Whereas this turn, this is the turn.
No, it would have been fine last turn.
It would have been okay.
Because he would have killed everything. He would have been able to do it for 3, and he would have killed